Good morning, this is Brenda Salzano. Today I'm going to be videoing how I sew together the little hipster bags. This is one of them. This is not the pattern that I'm going to do today. But you can see the two little clips on the side. That's the only thing that you'd have to buy extra. It's just a simple bag that's really quick and easy to make. It comes on one fat quarter, and that includes the lining material. The one I'm using today is the Blue Ox design, and it has just the same colored background with little flecks in it. And you can, on the top part, this is both the top flap, you can choose whether you want this on the inside or this one on the outside. You can switch them back and forth. So you start out by cutting on the solid black lines, and everything will be written on the pattern, the basic instructions. So it starts out with number 1, just cut out on the black lines, and then you're going to sew the bottom A to the both sides. There's 2 sides to each one, so it looks like this, and the little, it has like a indentation here at the corner, so you know that this is the top up here. And of course it's right sides together. And then you're going to sew down this side. Skip sewing that, don't sew that yet. Sew here, and then sew up the other side. So you don't sew those sides yet. And you're probably not going to be able to see real good on the, you can't really see me sewing, but I'm not stopping the video this time, so I'll catch it all. I'm sewing right on the little stitch lines, right sides together again. When you get to that corner that you're not supposed to sew, you can just stop your machine, line up your edges. You don't have to cut that thread. It saves you a little time. Set your pressure foot down and go ahead and continue sewing. And just clip that thread afterwards. Again, on the other side, I'm doing the same. Skip that corner, line up my edges. Then I will cut off the excess on those 3 sides, the bottom and the 2 sides. So this is how it looks. This is open. And now we have the, whoops, excuse me. Now we have the little corners. So this is your corner. You want to open this up. This is the only tricky part, that if you haven't never done them before, and I don't even know what they really call this, but you take and line up those two seams, this seam here and this seam on the bottom, the side seam, so that you have, so it looks like this. See, there's the inside. Here's the two seams, there and there. Then I'm going to cut across this way, about 1/4 of an inch or so across that way. That makes it look like a box to me, so I call it a box pleat. But I have no idea what the real name is. Like I said, I really am not a professional sewer. I sew because I like to make things out of my designs. And of course, I've always sewn for repairs and repairing clothing or making little things myself, but I don't really call myself a seamstress. So I've already now made that stitch, and now I'm just going to trim that back. And there's how it looks. See how it makes it like a little box? I'm going to do that on the other side. And it doesn't have to be exactly, 1/4 inch. I go whatever it takes to just get in, to make sure that you got a nice straight line. I do make sure I back stitch those corners, because there's a lot of stress on the inside like that and the outside of those corners. So now both sides are done. Now on this one, I'm going to go ahead and, let's see, I want to go ahead and open it up. I could be wrong. I may be flipping that back later. Anyway, we want to go ahead now and do the liner now. So we're going to take the lining, which is lining called B, A and B. Again, it's right sides together. You can clip or pin those if you want to make sure that they don't get all wonky. Sides are done. Trim the excess. I saw the most interesting show the other day on YouTube. I think I watched YouTube more than any other thing. So many choices. There was this true documentary of a lady who's at least my age. I'm like 70. And she was either my age or older. Still living on a farm. I think it was Virginia, way back in the woods. I call it a farm. It's kind of more like a ranch farm in the woods too. I mean, she's basically off grid with electricity. She did have a landline, but she cooked on a wood stove, and she has wood heat. She still had some sheep and a milking cow and a couple calves, and this man came down to see her and looked at her whole place, and then it was like 48 minutes long, and she walked all over the property showing him, and she lives there by herself. And it was amazing what she does. It's very hard. It's a good life living off the land, but it's also very hard. And her husband Bob had died a number of years back, and though she was lonely, she continues to keep it up as best she can. But it was just very interesting to see how she did everything. You know what her water was like. It was a gravity fed water. She doesn't have electricity, right, for these kind of things. She had outdoor toilets that were turning back into the soil. I mean, it was real interesting to see how they still do things. And I was raised that way. I've been on homes where it was a homestead in Talkeetna, and then I had my dad and mom always had ranches or farms. I like the modern conveniences, but I understand the great offering that rural life has, especially for couples. But when you're a single, it gets to be pretty rough. I'm now doing those cross box pleats again on this one. Again, going over it twice. And trimming my as long as you make sure those two seams are lined up, and then I kind of press the hems going one way and then the other way, and then sew across from the sides. I'll bet you they didn't show that part, but I bet you she had one of those foot pedal sewing machines even. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, so now I've got both of those pieces done. Lining together, lining side to the bead. We did that. That's number 3, and 4 is sewing the box diagonals. All end steps and then clip it. We've done all that. We've done the outside. Now we'll sew the flaps, the flap sides. Number 6. Flaps. This is the flaps. It's the triangle pieces. And another thing I do on these the top flap thing is, let me get this on here correctly, is if you don't want a real pointed end, like I like to cut this off and then have it more of a blunt. Here you can see that's the more pointy one, but some of mine I have it like this one. Here you can see I did it more round. So you can decide that too on how you want that to be. And you want to just sew up the sides, around, however you want your point in, down, and the side. Leave the bottom open because you need to flip it. When you get to that first little corner, just make sure your needle's down, and then you can rotate and continue sewing. I'll let my needle down. I'm going to go across that corner. Continue on my way down the other side. Okay, so you can see I went straight across there, and so I will cut that off. So there's no drastic tip on there. I'm just cutting down the side so there's less bulk inside when we turn it inside out. Cutting all along here and trimming the close to, but not real close to my stitching, because we obviously don't want that to tear out. You can see that tip now is more shaped. I'm not going to iron this one, but it's always a good idea after you get done with each thing that you do, like your seams and stuff, and when you turn it inside out, to go over to the iron and iron it. Helps keep everything nice and neat and clean looking. Tell where you're at. I didn't want this video to be too long. So there we have this side, and we have this side. Now, the reason that's like this is because there's where the ox is. Okay. So you can see here is my lining, here's my outer, and this is how it would look. Like here's how this would look. You can try it out. See, that's how my little top would be if I use that side, and that's how it would look if I use this side. What do you think? This side, or should I use this side? I think I kind of like this side. Okay. So now we want to have the lining. Get this all straightened out here. Right sides together. Keep remembering that. It's right sides together. So my liner is the one that I leave out. My outside has been turned back inside so that they're right sides together. So I'm putting the liner in, stuffing it inside the outside, right? That means you see the outside, the liner's inside, but it's pattern to pattern on the inside like this. And if you look at the inside, you'll still see outside. But we'll flip this later. But next we've got to put in, and you want to be careful with this part. So wherever you're going to have your front, you have to decide whether it's this side or this side. And then you're going to put this in so that when it's flipped out, it's on the outside. It just takes a little bit of thinking. And sometimes you might have to pull that, you pull it all the way down, and maybe that little tip will have to come up a little bit along the edge there. That's okay. Do that, that comes out. Stop this just a